It's the LA homestand weekend. The Guerrillas and OpTic Gaming play each other first. Will either of them even get out of their pool, though? That question, plus we've got a rematch of Atlanta and Florida in the opposite pool. Who's going to be your top four? Who's going to look good after day number one? Let's break things down and give you guys the predictions and the format for the LA homestand coming up this weekend. CoD fans, good to see you guys back. IHOLDSHIFT. It's been a twofer day. We had the Draft Now video, or the Draft Buff Fantasy Now video that came out a little bit ago. Got this one here. If you'd missed the one before, go back and check it out. If you're not playing Draft Buff Fantasy, I don't know what you're doing. It's a lot of fun. It's easy. It's free. You love to see all of those things. So let's get into what we have going on this weekend. Of course, it's the LA homestand. A lot of things have changed, though. A number of substitutions and a couple of fill-ins that'll be happening for almost all of our teams that are participating this week. Goodness, that chokes me up a touch. Let's dig in and take a look at what our pools are here first, or our groups, however you want to call them. Starting in Group A, we'll have Minnesota and Seattle playing each other. Los Angeles Guerrillas will be playing up against OpTic Gaming LA. Now, it is important to note for our Minnesota-Seattle game that's up first, Seattle is playing without Enable and subbing in Pander. Again, a top amateur player that has looked very, very good. But will this give Seattle any more favor against this Minnesota team? My general reaction is probably not. These two teams have not played each other yet. But for the side of Seattle, they're 1-7 in Search and Destroy. It's not good. They only average little over 3 rounds per map that they play. They're getting smoked. Outside of a round 11 win and a round 11 loss to the LAG, and they also had a round 11 loss to Dallas, they've been getting blown out by just about everybody. Now, will Pander bring some extra Search and Destroy flavor to this squad? I think yes. As a substitute, he's probably one of the more rehearsed guys coming into this weekend with the full 5-man team that Seattle has put together. My biggest concern for this team, though, is if you're not doing well in Search, however do you figure you're going to win a series? They're 3-6 in the hard point. They are 4-1 in domination. That's good news. That's good enough for third. But you're playing up against a Minnesota team that's second in domination. They're 4-2. So it's tough to really kind of look at this squad and say that they have a chance versus Minnesota. Personally speaking, I think Seattle can take a map, but that's about all that I would give them. This Minnesota team is looking very, very good. I've got them winning this one 3-1, and then likely also getting out of their pool. But before we get there, we got to talk about OpTic Gaming LA and LAG. This is a weird one, simply due to the fact that LAG is essentially going to be playing as like a pickup team because they just added in 3 new players at the very last second. Blast, Vivid, and you've got Spart. They'll be playing with Aqua and Decimate, and you would think that there's not enough practice time for these guys to play up against a full 5-man team. Doesn't matter how bad they are in this instance. The badness is the facet of the OpTic Gaming LA team. However, the simple fact of the matter is, even as OpTic Gaming has looked bad, they also have made role swaps. Slasher will be playing as the AR, and now Dashy will be running around with an SMG. OpTic Gaming LA are the favorites in this matchup at a pretty considerable margin if you're looking at the betting lines. But personally speaking, I wouldn't rule out LAG just because they're playing as a 5-man. That has maybe not the much as rehearsal as you want. This OpTic Gaming team is still struggling with knowing where they want to set up. They're 5-man hitting scrap time. They're not looking generally good against other teams that are just playing fast against them. Against that Florida squad that they played, that was not against a Florida team that looked particularly good that day. They still lost the St. Petrodome. They still lost the Search and Destroy, and they still lost the Hackney Yard Hardpoint. The only game that OpTic was able to win was the Ramaza Hardpoint, which I don't figure the LAG team's going to let them play. It's too wild of a map. I imagine that'll stay as their hard veto. I imagine that LAG will want to play on a map like Gunrunner or Cave or even maybe St. Petro, and those maps are not good for OpTic Gaming LA. This is going to sound wild, but I've got LAG taking this in 5. I got a 3-2. Yeah, you could argue, like, well, what are they going to do about the Search and, this pickup players? I think they'll be fine. The whole side of it is they're going to ban out maps they don't want to see. They're going to play the maps that they feel most confident on. That's going to be a lot of mid-map adaptation stuff where it comes to Search in specific. But OpTic Gaming LA have not looked particularly great. Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to argue that they've played up against some of the top teams in the league so far, that's why they don't have a win. Yeah, that's fine, but again, they lost to a Florida team on Saturday at Atlanta that did not look particularly good. Pristini was ego-chelling everything. I don't know. I'm still not on this OpTic Gaming LA squad. Hearing that TJ and Dashy just don't seem to care, that's, again, something that you really can't teach and overcome. So that would put Seattle in the losers bracket versus either Los Angeles Guerrillas or OpTic Gaming LA. Doesn't matter who gets through there. I think Seattle still has the favor in that matchup to get into the next matchup in the second round of the losers bracket. You also then would have Minnesota versus either OpTic Gaming or Los Angeles Guerrillas. I got Minnesota in that one, no problem as well. So I've got 3 1s in the winners bracket round 2. I've got 3 1s in the losers bracket round 1 and round 2. We'll find out what happens when we get to Sunday. Going to Group B, we've got Atlanta playing up against Florida in a rematch of the Atlanta Finals. And then we've got Dallas playing up against New York. Now, a couple of swap-ups here. It has been confirmed that Pharaoh will be filling in for Pristini for personal reasons this weekend, whereas for New York, we're not still sure if it's going to be Happy or is it going to be Mac Melts. If it's Happy, that New York team is going to get absolutely smoked. If it's Mac Melts, potential maybe for them to do well. Let's go back to the Atlanta and Florida reset though after the finals. Again, it was a 3-0 for Atlanta the first time through, but it was a close one with only a 2-round differential in the search, a 6-4 there, and then a 10-point game on the St. Petro Dom. The only thing that I have concern about here for Florida is you're putting in Pharaoh, who has looked okay, but he has not been a very great SMG player. He's not a Pristini. He's not going to fly around the map. He's been mostly playing a lot more passive from the times that I've seen him play, and you already got someone in Mox who's kind of already doing that, and of course you've got Skies, who looks like he's running the main AR for the Florida team. And beyond that, I don't see a world where Atlanta's going to allow Florida to play on St. Petro Dom. They played there exclusively when they were at Atlanta, and I don't think teams are going to let Florida get away with that again. Personally speaking, I like the look of Atlanta going into this one. I think it will be another 3-0. I think Florida has some opportunity, but you're playing with Pharaoh, who's, I will say he's up there in the amateur scene, but he's not a top pick, I don't think, at least not in my mind. So I don't like the chances of Florida coming through. You've got to keep in mind that, again, out of the search games they've played, they only play Arklov or they only play Gunrunner. They played one Ramaza, and no one's playing Ramaza anymore. So if they're not playing Piccadilly, they're not playing Petro, they're going to pick either Arklov or Gunrunner. And I just don't think that either of those maps are good for them versus Atlanta. So I've got Atlanta taking a 3-0 there. And then looking at New York versus Dallas, again, the biggest question mark just comes down to who is going to be that 5th player playing for New York. If it's Happy, I don't like this New York team. Happy hasn't played in years. He's probably just going to be the OBJ homie where he's just going to sit there and just soak up time or look for flag captures. And the fact of the matter is, this New York team has not been convincing anywhere yet. They're 3-5 in hardpoint, they're 2-4 in search, and they've only won a single domination. Granted, that domination was versus Atlanta FaZe in the opening weekend. I just don't like the New York subliners' chance to get out of this pool, let alone to get past Dallas. So that would put Florida versus New York in the losers bracket round 1, and then Atlanta versus Dallas in the winners bracket round 2. We'll start with what predictions would look like for New York versus Florida. I think I've got Florida in this one. It really just comes down. If Mac is playing for New York and not Happy, this could be a very close series. We've seen that accuracy starting to pick things up from the AR side of things. You're just waiting for really Temp to get right back involved. Attach and Zuma have both had a couple of the great series so far. Temp has just been kind of okay so far. So, depending on who this 5th player is, New York very well could put up a fight versus Florida. My only worry is that Florida seems to know exactly what they like and what they don't like. So, if New York does not come out and hard counter what Florida likes, I think this game will go to Florida's direction. I've got Florida winning this one 3-1 and getting into losers bracket round 2, where they'll play up against the loser of Atlanta versus Dallas. And I don't see them playing up against Atlanta. Atlanta versus Dallas, we have not seen this matchup since the first week, the first real game, honestly, of the launch weekend. And it was a 3-0 for the Atlanta FaZe in rather convincing fashion outside of the Azir Cave hardpoint, where they had to make a little bit of a comeback. But it was a 6-0 Arklov peak and a 188 to 118 domination. So for Dallas, how do you respond to this? You haven't looked good in St. Petro. You don't really want to play Atlanta on Hackney Yard for domination in specific, and you have not played any Ramaza or St. Petro Search. Those are the only other 2 maps that also Atlanta FaZe have not played yet. So this set does not really feel like it feels does not really feel like a set that would go in favor of Dallas. I've got this one going 3-1 for Atlanta. I don't see them having too much of a problem with Dallas unless something crazy happens. So you would see Dallas playing up against Florida, and we'll talk about that losers round 2 matchup coming on Sunday. That's all the breakdown for you guys going into this one. A little bit of a shorter video here for you, but hopefully it was enough information to get you guys going for the weekend. Until the next one, hope you guys keep holding it down. Later. Bye-bye.